Hi guys, how are you? Dr. Pam, Academic Coaching for World Changers. Are you ready for some questions today? Remember, I'm going to be explaining material and content, and if you want to answer the questions, just hit that pause button while I'm reading it and come back and pick it back up. So I'm going to talk a little bit about groups for a moment. So again, for every test that you take, clinical test, whether you're an LCSW, an LMSW, whatever, LPC, we have to know groups. I love groups. If anybody has ever had an individual session with me, you know I absolutely adore them. You don't have to work as hard. Remember, the goal of a process group is to go from being very much leader led to then going all the way over here, where in the middle, when we're working, Dr. Pam sitting back, relaxing, like, hey, Bob, what do you think about what Mary said? They're great. And most insurance companies really do like them. On my NCE test, that is definitely a question. It talks about the cost benefit, and a group is really something that insurances prefer. I know when you work a group, you get paid less in the real world, but that's between you and your agency. That is not how it works with insurance, most places. Okay, so again, so for my NCE, I really have to know there are three major group theorists. So for my social workers as well, now most of us, I think, started off with Tuckman, right? We learned forming, storming, norming, performing, and then adjourning, right? So Tuckman said, and he's one of the gurus, and what he said is the first stage of cohesiveness is going to be that norming stage. Remember, I set the group rules, but the client set the norms. Each group is different because there are different norms. So a norm would be that, hey, Pam's always late, or Mary always starts the conversation, or Bob always brings in the coffee. That's a norm. If we've got Mary and everybody knows that she knits when she gets anxious, or Dr. Pam bites her thumbs or her fingernails, that's part of the norm. Okay. So that is Tuckman. Now, according to the American Association of Group Workers, it really says that we should pre-screen. So on the test, if there's an option to have a pre-screen or a pre-group, we want to. Not always an option in the real world, but the test will say, who would I not want in a group? I don't want someone who's actively psychotic. If there are five voices in their head already, they do not need mine, and definitely not anybody else's in this group setting. Okay. Someone who's in a crisis. And the rationale behind that is when we go in a group setting, remember, you're just talking to me. We don't get to just focus on your crisis in the beginning. And also the performing or the cohesion or the working stage, all those being the exact same thing. That is what I'm really going to see where the healing happens. So in that part, that is when I let my guard down. That's when I'm going to tell people my secrets, right? That's where the healing happens. So someone in crisis needs to really get that individual because they're in crisis right now. Remember, all groups go through these phases. Some groups never get to cohesion. Some groups never get to that tightness stage. That's happened in several groups I've run. Every people are people, right? Now, remember, in a process group, the goal is to let my guard down. In a product group, the goal is to get the sheet of paper, right? That's the goal. Just get the sheet of paper so I can pass the test. So let's look at my question and we'll give you some more information on group processes. So listen to the question very carefully. A healing capacity develops within the group as members increasingly experience blank of who they are. Okay? A healing capacity develops within group as members increasingly experience who they are. I always want you to spend more time in the question. Please understand the question before you look at any of the answers. Just understand the process of the question, right? If you don't understand the question, keep in it for a bit. Just keep in the question. So my four choices are A, mistrust, B, non-acceptance, C, dislike, and D, acceptance. Now, the question says the healing capacity develops within the group as members experience blank of who they are. So if I just kind of read through that question, I might not have understood. It's asking about me, right? Me personally in a group setting, not about how the group develops, it's asking about me. So then, again, my answers are mistrust, non acceptance, dislike, and de acceptance. Now, this is a test hit that is not always true, but keep it in. I said to you that A, mistrust, I'm sorry, excuse me. I said B, non acceptance, and D, acceptance. When I say that both of those are the opposite, that's the total opposite, that means neither one can be true and neither one can be false, right? They both can't be true and they both can't be false. So that's a hint that one of those is probably the answer. That is not always the case. I've seen questions where both were wrong, but just keep that in mind as a test hint. So again, mistrust, non-acceptance, dislike, acceptance. If you want to stop the video right now, feel free to and think about it for a little bit and then come back. Okay? So mistrust. So the healing capacity develops when group members experience mistrust. Remember, it's about who I am, not about the group. So mistrust doesn't fit. A healing capacity develops within the group as members increasingly dislike them. If I am healing myself, if I am working in this group to make myself better, I've got to learn to accept myself. So D would be the answer on that. Now, I would love to think that this is probably a person-centered question, because what Carl Rogers says is that if we as therapists, right, if we learn positive regard, if we learn to be non-judgmental, if we learn to be genuine, he said that's congruence, right? My mouth and my body line up. If as therapists, if we learn all those things, the client will eventually learn to figure out who they are and make changes. So that's how a question works. Okay, so a healing capacity develops within a group as members increasingly experience acceptance of who they are. Now, I said to you earlier, remember that there is product and product. The product is what I get at the end of the group. It's a sheet of paper. The content is what I teach. If I'm teaching drug and alcohol treatment, if I'm teaching substance abuse treatment, right, I can teach those in a product or a process group. The process group is storming, forming, norming, right, performing, and then it's over. Tuckman. Corey uses the verbiage in his pre-group. His first group is pre-group. There's no one there. The second stage is the initial group for Corey, and then the third stage is the storming, which he calls transition. We're transitioning from being one person to becoming a group member. So Corey uses the word working for his performance group, and Yalom uses the term cohesiveness. They all mean the exact same thing. Okay, so if you have a test that has many different theories, the NCE, the LMFT, sometimes I see that on the NCHMCE. So you really have to know all three of those theorists are still group theorists. Sometimes with my social work, you'll see the Boston model, which again is the same thing, knowing the verbiage and how group works, going from being very much leader-led to then being group-led. Okay? I hope you found this question helpful, guys, and thank you for tuning in and trusting us with Academic Coaching for World Changers. I hope to see you in one of our live sessions. Remember to like and subscribe. Bye, guys.